Ok, we are online. Buonasera a tutti, siamo molto felici. Questa sera abbiamo uno dei top bike packer dal 2015 nel ranking in tutte le competizioni che ha affrontato, insomma nel ranking dei primi 5 ha vinto una Transcontinental Race, ha vinto un Italy Divide, sempre insomma in posizioni alte. Diamo il benvenuto a Josh Ibbett. So, good evening, everybody. Tonight we are happy and glad and excited to have a chat with Josh Ibbett, that is one of the top bike packer, we can say that. He's from England. He has been always in the top 5 in many competitions, in all the competitions that he has done. Yeah, since 2015, right?
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah.
I mean, I've either finished top 5 or not finished, so.
Okay. You won a transcontinental race, right? Was
Yeah,
2015?
2015, yeah.
Yes. Okay.
And second place in 2014.
Sorry?
Second place in 2014.
Oh, great. Didn't know that.
It's my first race.
Great. And also you arrived first at the Italy Divide 2017. That is actually when we met.
Yeah, you gave me a good tour of Rome.
And then I mean other great achievements, like was second and third place in the Oman race for Biking Man Oman, right?
Yeah, I can't get that one.
And fifth place at the Tour Divide, but of course we know weather conditions were really bad.
Yeah, that was sixth place, I think.
Now, sorry, sometimes connection is not very good, so I miss some words, and so.
Yeah, it's a long way to Italy.
Okay. So first of all, I just ask a very informal question, I have to say, about the situation right now in England. How are you doing? Can you still ride because of the COVID? Because here in Italy, we stopped riding for almost 2 months.
Yeah, in England it's been different. We have been able to ride locally, which has been really great. But obviously no races or anything, no gatherings. Most people have been staying at home. So the rules here are you can ride, you can do one exercise per day. So for me, that's cycling.
Okay.
And apart from that, we have to stay at home. But I'm lucky, I've been working still. Our family business sells like agricultural equipment for farmers and people like that. So we've stayed open. So I've still been working, so life hasn't changed drastically from my day-to-day life. But obviously nothing else is the same.
Yeah. Well, Mauro also is still working. I'm not, because as you know, I do bike tours, so no tourist, so no work for me. But it's fine. I can read. I can do other stuff. So I think we start with the first question of this chat, the official question, and Mauro will say it first in Italian, and then he will repeat it in English for you. So, Mauro.
Allora Josh, rompiamo il ghiaccio, parliamo un po' di te. Dove vivi al momento e qual è il tuo background come ciclista? Hai cominciato a pedalare quando eri ragazzino e non ti sei più fermato? Partecipi a delle gare quando eri più giovane? Josh, let's start breaking the ice, talking about you. Where do you live and what's your background as a cyclist? Did you start cycling in your childhood and you never stopped? Did you take part in races when you were younger? So, it's just to know you better. So
Yeah, so I live in England, obviously. So I live near Cambridge, which is quite a famous city. And the terrain here is very flat. It's kind of similar to the north of Italy, the Po Valley. Lots of winds, not many mountains, or no mountains. So yeah, I ride on the flat all the time. And I started riding when I was maybe 12, 13, riding for the sake of riding. And my first race, I was age 14. So that would have been sort of the early 2000s, 2001 maybe. And I did mountain biking, cross country. So I raced cross country, and then things progressed over time. So I started in stage races and 12-hour races and 24-hour races. And then I kind of got a bit bored of going around in the same circles all the time. And I love stage racing, I love traveling, but it's so expensive I did Cape Epic, and it's nearly £3,000 to fly to South Africa and to pay their entry fees. But I've always been inspired by traveling, and people cycling around the world. Michael, I knew Mike from the races in the UK, and then he did around the world, and then he did Tour Divide. And I thought, oh, that's kind of cool, but a bit beyond me. And then he created the transcontinental race, and I thought, wow, I've got to do it now. So, I didn't do the first one in 2013. I was too scared, but I watched it avidly, and then after that, I went touring for the first time. I flew to Ljubljana in Slovenia, and cycled home to England through the Dolomites and through Switzerland and through France and Luxembourg and Belgium. And then that was my first proper tour. And then my second proper tour was the transcontinental race in 2014. And yeah, I did okay.
That's very interesting, because it seems that you started as most Italian riders started their experience too, riding when they were young, joining competitions like the 24 hours. And then you shift into an higher level, but passing by the touristic mood of cycling in a certain sense, in a very intense way, but in a touristic approach, which is the one that people love.
Yeah, for me, I did it backwards. I did all the racing, and then I realized through the transcontinental race, I actually really like touring. I think I like touring more than racing now, to be honest. But I've always raced, so I do enjoy the competitive aspects. But I value the travel and seeing new places as much as the racing, if not more than the racing, I think, which is why I've done sort of races in different places. Kind of Oman, I wanted to go to see a new place, and Rwanda this year. I chose those places over races in countries I've been to before, purely to travel.
Let's remember that you traveled around the world, also with your girlfriend for
exactly.
parts of the tour. So it's something.
Yeah. Well, this was after the transcontinental. I won in 2015, and then I went back in 2016, and I didn't finish, and I wasn't fit enough, and I had an injury when I did the Tuscany Trail, and I got attacked by one of the big sheepdog at Radicofoni. And so I lost loads of time. I wasn't fit.
Yeah, worst enemies of cyclists for cyclists.
Yeah. But when I won Italy Divide in 2017, I was riding with Jay Pitavari and the Czech guy. I can't remember his name for the first through the night, because we started at maybe 8 o'clock, I think. Yeah. And at dawn we got to Radicofoni, and I got there and I thought, I know this place, and we were going the other way. So I attacked as hard as I could down the hill, where I got bitten by the dog, and I got a gap, and I never saw them again. So that's karma, eh?
Yeah. Pretty bad animals. Yeah. They don't like cyclists at all.
No, I went fast next time.
The United States Cougars, to be honest.
Yeah.
But they can be nasty. nasty dogs.
Yeah, well, I have the scars to prove it. So.
Yeah, I forgot about this episode. Yes, but yeah, now you remind me that.
Yeah,
so
I still want to go back to Tuscany Trail. I have unfinished business still.
Sorry, your connection was really bad. What did you say?
I said I have unfinished business with Tuscany Trail. I need to visit again.
Well, maybe next year. Never know.
maybe this year. Who knows? You can't plan at the moment, can you?
Okay, Daniele.
Okay, so seems that you have ridden many different kind of bikepacking events, starting with Transcontinental, is on tarmac, and you rode the Tour Divide, just to take the first, and we will say the last for now, that is off-road. Which style, which kind of event you like more? Just a second, I have to say it in Italian. So,
okay.
Sembra che hai pedalato molti diversi tipi di eventi, dalla strada, eventi di strada di bikepacking come il Transcontinental Race a eventi off-road come il Tour Divide. Quali eventi ti piace più pedalare, su asfalto o off-road? So basically the question is, you like more riding off-road or tarmac?
I think my history in cycling is more off-road, so I do enjoy off-road, and I kind of like pedaling races. There, I'm not so keen on loads of hike and bike. If I wanted to go hiking, I'd take a backpack. But every race has its place, and there is hike and bike sections in a lot of races. But if there's too much, then I just get annoyed because I want to ride, So I like dirt roads. I like covering long distances. Yeah. But I also like mountain biking. It's single track trails and things. So I'd say on the whole, I prefer off-road. I went through the phase of road riding. For me, it was a way to cover loads and loads of distance and see loads of places in Europe. But a lot's changed since that time. I'm a bit more cautious on the road nowadays. I think I was young in 2014 and 2015. Well, 2014, I didn't know any different. Then you ride down these big roads in the Transcontinental Race, and you kind of get to the end of the road and you think, oh, that was a bit dangerous. And then in 2015, when I won, I went back and I did some of the same roads, and I was scared because I knew what was coming. I knew that I was riding on a dangerous road, and and then obviously tragically Mike got killed the year after, or almost 18 months after, and that changed my opinion a lot about riding on the road or racing on the road. I still do, but I try and pick a smaller roads. I'm not really into big roads anymore.
Yeah, I totally agree. As Italian cyclists, we know perfectly what means. I mean, riding on road. I still remember once I was touring through France and England, and I met two English cyclists that were coming the other way, and they said, "Oh, where are you from?" We start to chat a little bit, and they said, I said like, "I'm going to London," and they said, "Oh, be careful. The drivers are crazy in London." I said, "Well,
the worst drivers in the world.
I like in Rome, so I don't know what's worse, if Rome or London." Well, anyway, I had a great time in England. So basically, off-road is what you like. I mean, it's your history basically. You started off-road. You like also long distance on road, on tarmac, but off-road. And now, also because roads are quite dangerous, you always choose back roads.
It depends where you are. I mean, you can go somewhere like Spain and you can ride roads with no traffic. I love riding on smooth tarmacs on a fast road bike. It's just such a good feeling. But I'm very selective now about where I ride. if I can find a cycle path that's off the road, I try and find that. It depends which country you're in. Some countries are more dangerous because the drivers are less considerate to cyclists.
Yeah.
And even in areas of country, I mean, I've been in the south of Italy. I've ridden down the coast road from Naples south.
Amalfi. The Amalfi
yeah.
Coast. Okay.
Yeah, in the off season, so like in February, there's no cars anywhere. It's brilliant. So it depends. I'm very excited about which road I ride on when I ride.
So this last part I lost completely. It was a bit of frozen.
Yeah. I said I just raised now about where and when I ride on the road.
Okay. You're frozen. I can't really see you moving.
Oh, sorry.
There's a connection problem, maybe.
Yeah.
No, I don't, do you think? Give me 1 minute, I'll just go and check.
Maybe okay?
Yeah, let me just, I'll check the router. Back in a second.
Questo è il bello della diretta, come sempre, che anche perché poi siamo in collegamento internazionale. Questo è stato anche un salto di qualità dell'Italian MTB Trail, no? Possiamo pure dirlo, vantiamoci.
Esatto.
Anzi, speriamo che stasera ci siano degli amici dall'estero, che ho sparso un po' la voce, come penso aver fatto anche tu, perché Josh è comunque una personalità nel mondo del ciclismo, che è diciamo, passato alla ribalta anche in Italia con l'Italy Divide, però comunque sono diversi anni. Perché...
Welcome back.
Tornato.
No.
Yeah, sorry, I'll just check the router. I hope you're editing this.
Well, it's first time that we are trying to do an international call with this, so it's kind of an experiment.
The cable's not that long.
Well, I hope that we can kind of edit a little bit, but it's also nice that it's kind of a live chat, so it is what it is. Some problem, but fine. I think that Mauro has now
another question for you.
Another question?
Yeah.
Allora, ti piace uscire con i tuoi amici, a parte la tua preparazione atletica? Ti alleni come ti alleni per le gare a cui poi partecipi? Lunghe sessioni a bassa intensità o sessioni di allenamento corta ad alta intensità, o entrambi su strada o fuori strada? So, Josh, do you take any leisure rides with your friends besides of your athletic preparation? How do you train for a race? Long sessions, low intensity, or short sessions, high intensity, or both of them? Road or off-road? There are so many questions, but this is an interesting topic for our followers. So, first of all, leisure rides. Do you take them?
Yeah. Sometimes it depends. Like if I'm training for an event, if I have a target, then I'm not the best person to go for a bike ride with. I like to train, but then sometimes I go when I've got no targets. I like to ride for leisure. The problem is where I live, there's no kind of mountain biking. There's no kind of amazing trails that I can just go and ride for fun. So I need a target to stay motivated. So this is why I have a race every now and again. But then equally, when I go touring, for me that's the leisure. Steady, slow rides, seeing the place. But sometimes I still ride for 200 miles in a day and get carried away. But yeah, for training for races, I think it's important to have a balance of long rides, long steady rides, and you need the shorter intensity as well. I think the biggest problem people make when they're training for example, Italy Divide or Tour Divide, is to do lots and lots of really, really long, really, really slow rides, because it's good. It means you're used to sitting on your bike and being in the saddle all day. However, I think that if you train in that way all the time, you get really, really good at going very slowly for a long time. But if you're racing, you want to go fast for a long time, so you need to kind of train your body. And essentially, it's a very simplified kind of theory, but it's kind of based in some facts. I think that you have your threshold level, and when you train, all your training zones are set as the percentage of that level. So my theory is that obviously if your percentage is going up here, then everything else comes up as well. So if you can do loads of long, fast rides, your slow rides are therefore going to be faster, providing you're comfortable riding your bike for a long period of time. That's the best way to get fit for these races. So, for example, what I do is if I have, for example, last year for the Tour Divide, in January, I went for a 10-day bikepacking trip. So I cycled from Nice to Malaga really slowly, like 100 miles a day for 10 days. And that gave me a really good foundation to train from. And then after that, I was doing just your normal kind of, almost like I was training for a road race, like a normal short road race. So I did sort of tempo rides, threshold rides, and then I had a block where I did some racing, so road races and mountain bike races, to get the intensity, to get used to going really, really, really deep. And then the period of time, maybe the 6 weeks leading up to Tour Divide, I was doing more specific rides. So I'd be doing 6-hour rides at the weekend. I'd go out and do 4-hour rides. I'd do 20 minutes tempo riding every hour. And that really gets you, because tempo is not that hard, but when you do it at the end of a 4-hour ride, it is really quite hard to try and keep the pace up. So that was kind of the more specific rides I did, and then a few kind of back-to-back days. But I think the important thing with these bikepacking rides and races is you can be really, really fit. You can have a coach, you can train perfectly like a professional. But if you can't physically sit in the bike all day and suffer in that sense and get together, then there's no point in training. So it's a combination of your mind as well as how physically fit you are. And I think that's the great leveling thing of bikepacking races, that people are more determined, they can manage themselves, they can look after themselves, cope with like bad conditions or problems. I think that's why they do better. And if you're really fit and you can cope with it, then you'll do very well.
Yeah, that's interesting, because usually when we have to shift between work and leisure time, we can only take short rides during the week, if not staying on the turbo trainer, like it happened in this lockdown period.
Exactly.
We can only take long rides in the weekends, but we often ride with the lightest bike possible to log the longest distances. But it would be much more effective taking an actual simulation of a backpacking ride, even if shorter than the 10 days you took to Malaga. But for us, it could be the classical micro adventure to spend leisure time and take an effective training, maybe.
Yeah, exactly. And the important thing about that is about the 10-day trip to Malaga. Like, I was living off a bike for 10 days, so I knew what gear I needed. I knew which clothes to wear at which time, at which temperature. And all that stuff is really, really, really important. And I didn't need to worry about it in the run up to Tour Divide, because I knew my bike was right. I knew my kit was right. I just had to worry about getting fit then. And actually in the Tour Divide, it was my mind that let me down, not my fitness. I think I was probably one of the fittest people in that field. I was more than fit enough to do a very fast time, but my mind wasn't focused enough, too many distractions, and I didn't quite get that bit right. And that cost me time, amongst other things as well. There's a big storm thing, but it's all lessons and all hindsight.
Sorry?
I said that I learned lots of lessons, and in hindsight, it's easy to know when you made a mistake, but at the time, it's not obvious, is it?
Yeah. You have much more. You're much more experienced than us, so it's always interesting to learn from you. And also, you understand that your mental training is very effective when
sometimes
those rides. So it's also important. It's not only to be fit, but also mentally prepared for the effort.
Yeah.
But the reason I'm more experienced is because I've ridden for a very long time. So I learned about suffering when I was doing 24-hour races and 12-hour races. I was okay. I got third at the national champs once, and I was quite competitive, and I learned how to push myself through the night. So riding at night is not a problem for me because I've done this for years and years and years. But when it came to bikepacking, I've still made all the mistakes everyone makes now. But the thing is that I managed to make those mistakes, and it wasn't as big as it is now. So this was kind of 5 years ago. It still wasn't a big deal. Everyone didn't know what the Tour Divide was, or the Transcontinental race. So I made a lot of mistakes before that time. So when it came to the races, I was already more experienced. So I might not have been fittest in certain races, but I could, make the most of it. And everyone's catching up now, though.
Yeah.
And this offers us the opportunity to focus more on the races. And Daniele will make you some questions on this topic.
Exactly. La prima domanda è riguardo, visto che siamo italiani, riguardo il cibo e anche l'idratazione, però, e come cibo intendiamo anche il comfort food. So first question, because Italians love to eat, love food. So it's about food. So what do you like to eat while you're racing? And for example, I have some comfort food, and also Mauro, I know, that is Haribo. There are other people like Sofian, he likes sneakers, I read. And so everyone has his comfort food. So not only nutrition, but it's also important to comfort yourself during a race. And of course, also hydration. So you use bubbles, or you use camel bag or whatever.
So food-wise, I think, it's very personal. What works for me isn't going to work for other people. But I know what works. I think I like quite plain food. So if I can find in a race a restaurant or something that serves like just rice, rice is like the best energy for me. I think I just digest it really well. And in like races, races like Transcontinental race, just plain bread, like in France, just a baguette and some ham. Very simple, works very well for me. And again, Italy, pasta is just good fuel, isn't it? But this is assuming that you're in a place where you can find a restaurant. And I learned on the Tour Divide that there's long stretches where you've got nothing.
Yeah.
This was the first race for me where I'd really been, it's almost at certain stages you have one stop a day and you have to buy all your food for the entire day. So on Tour Divide, I was eating again. When I could stop at a diner, I'd eat pancakes. Like I get a whole bowl of a plate of massive pancakes, and I'd try and eat 2 meals at once. So American portions are very big. And there's a few times I went in and the waitress would be like, "Oh my God, you're going to eat all of that?" And I was like, "Yep." So I had my French toast and pancakes, and that would be my energy source for the day. And then I discovered that I started the Tour Divide with Cliff Bars, and after 2 days, I just could not look at Cliff Bars anymore.
Yeah.
So I found what worked for me. So I used to get like natural cereal bars with basically nuts, which work quite well. But again, after 2 weeks of those, fed up with them. And I found that chocolate M&Ms were good because if they melted in the heat in the desert, they didn't go everywhere. And you could just pour them in quickly when you really needed some energy.
Yeah.
So they're quite good. And then I was buying, they have like wraps pre-processed wraps. So I buy 4 or 5 of them. I just eat one of them, and they're not great, but it's the best you could find. It depends in the country. I think the best ride snack I ever found in Laos, and they sold like rice cakes by the side of the road, but they're made from real rice, almost not uncooked, but it's really solid. They were brilliant. But it just depends where you are. I think you have to find out what works for you and stick with it.
Yeah.
That's
And don't have too much of it. You never want to eat it.
Yeah,
I think the best thing I've had.
Sorry.
The best thing I had was on the last day of Tour de Bard in Silver City, so the last big town before the finish. I was in a gas station. I found a Pekin pie, and I brought one of them. And I thought maybe I should buy those. But no, I'll just buy this one. And I ate it, and it was the best thing I've ever eaten. And I've not seen any since. So I think next time I'm going to buy loads of them.
So I think I didn't get what you eat. What did you find? Sorry.
It's called a Pekin pie.
Pecan pie. Okay.
Yeah. I tell you what, that was the best thing I've eaten.
Yeah. Well,
and drinks. I like to carry bottles. I don't really like having things on my back if I can help it. Sometimes you need it, but I prefer not to. So I'd rather carry 2 big bottles, like 1 liter bottles in the frame.
Yeah.
And I try and drink water. Again, too much energy drink just makes you feel ill after a while. I normally carry sachets of the powder you use when you're ill, if you have diarrhea, like Diarrhea or something like this, because it's quite salty. So when you really need it and you put it in your bottles, it tastes really, really good, and it helps rehydrate you.
Okay.
And then sometimes I might start with some energy powder sachets, but I use them when I need it, not all the time. And when you're on Tour Divide and things like that, in Italy Divide, you end up drinking out of streams and fountains. Just drink what water you can. So you need to get used to drinking water all the time.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. And I remember that both me and Mauro we rode the French Divide, and we agree about that. Baguette is the national food in France.
Yeah, I think
baguette.
You need to buy a baguette at lunchtime and a whole packet of ham, and you eat half, and then you put the other in your pocket, and then you have it in 2 hours.
Yeah.
I honestly used to tie it to the handlebar.
Yeah.
All long. It was a problem when it was rainy, honestly, but it was good anyway.
But if you're hungry, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, it became kind of a porridge. Okay, so Mauro, do you have another question about that?
Okay. Let's go back to the mental preparation for the racing. I'll tell it in Italian before. Allora, parliamo quindi di sonno e concentrazione, come mantenerli e come gestirli durante le gare. Come fai a pedalare senza dormire o comunque riposando soltanto pochi minuti? Qual è la tua strategia? C'è qualcosa che fai per concentrarti, ad esempio ascoltare musica, podcast, meditazione? E quale tipo di musica eventualmente? Tom York è uno degli autori che abbiamo sentito che hai ascoltato.
Sì.
Anche un po' come per la tua origine geografica. Allora, tell us about sleeping and how can you keep concentration while racing. How can you manage to ride without sleeping or just resting for a few minutes and keep going? What is your strategy? And then I'll focus more on other topics. So let's start with the sleep deprivation and keeping the concentration. For example, do you listen to music or podcasts while on the long passages alone?
So yeah, some motivation and riding through the night. I mean, it's just it depends how hard you are, really. I think in a shorter race. So when I won Italy Divide, I did it in just under 3 days. I think I slept 3 hours the first night, and then I slept 45 minutes the second night. Well, I say slept. I lay on the ground for 45 minutes. I mean, this is the part. This is in my mind where you have touring and racing, and it's kind of. I think, I should be touring right now, and then I have to push myself through. And I think the sleep deprivation is the one part that kind of makes me prefer touring to racing. It takes quite a lot of mental determination. I think the best example of me being able to deal with sleep deprivation was on the TCR in 2015. And I think the trick is just to get into a routine. So my rules to myself in that race, which I stuck to every single day, apart from once when I overslept, was I go to sleep between 12 o'clock and 1 a.m. and then I'd sleep 3 hours, and then I wake up and I carry on. And that way you get a bit of the riding in the dark done before you go to sleep, because riding in the dark's the hardest thing. And then I'd sleep 3 hours, and then I woke up. I knew I had 1 or 2 hours until dawn, and I just concentrate on the first light. And then as soon as the first light comes up, then the next thing I focus on is the sun coming up and feeling the sun on your skin. And then I knew that, the next thing is breakfast, and I just break it down into smaller chunks. So once you've had breakfast, the next thing is lunch, and then you kind of break it down again to the evening and till it gets dark, and you just repeat, and you just get a routine. And I think that's the key to it, which I think is why I don't do so well in the shorter races. Like people like Sofia, and he can push through. He's got quite a talent for messing himself up with lack of sleep, which I don't necessarily think works for me. And I think that's why the races like the Biking Man race in Oman, the first time I slept in it, the second time I rode without sleep, and I don't like the places that takes my mind when I do 40 hours without sleeping, and it's just too much for me, I think. But I think that's why I prefer the longer races, like 5 nights at least, 2 weeks on the Tour Divide, because you have time to get a routine and dealing with it much easier.
Mm-hmm.
But talking about short races, for most of us, it means
I know.
I haven't read them, so it's always difficult to find the experiences. But it's interesting that you suggest to go step by step. That's interesting. Yeah. Get to the rising, to the to the breakfast, to the lunch. So it's
So my advice is, the way I deal with it is, you are at the start of, say, Tour Divide or Transcontinental race, and I never thought about the finish because it's so far away. And if you think about it and you think, oh my God, that's the other side of Europe or all the way down in America. I just didn't think about it. So when I lined up in Banff for Tour Divide, all I was thinking about was Canadian border, because I knew that if I focused on the whole ride, it'd be far too much, and my brain was already overwhelmed by the whole prospect of it anyway. I was quite intimidated by the Tour Divide, and until you've done it, you don't know what it's like. And now I've done it, I probably approach it slightly differently because I can visualize the entire route, and I think that's important for me. So next time I know I can break it down into smaller sections. But unless you don't have that kind of knowledge. So for example, when I first did the Tour Divide, I was training basically to get to Dover first for the ferry, because at that time it started in London. And I got to the ferry first with Christophe, and Rick had done it. And then we got to France. And then I remember getting to France, and I thought, well, that's just the start of the race. And it feels like in my head it's finished, and I just had to kind of set myself. But it's easier there because you've got country borders and checkpoints. So then it was Paris for the checkpoint, and then I had to get into Switzerland. So you make smaller targets, and then within that you have your daily routine. And I think that's the key for anything. You can over-research it, I think. And I think that was my problem on Tour Divide. I researched too much and think, oh my God, I've got a 4,000 meter mountain to climb. And that can intimidate you. But what I should have done is thought, I have to ride till midnight and then I'll sleep wherever I end up, and break it down more in a routine. And that makes it easier to manage.
Yeah. Okay. And do you ever listen to any music or podcasts? Because there are many people who try to keep the concentration listening to music, or even for boring, for example, broadcastings like the podcast. It depends on the mood.
Yeah, exactly. It's all about the mood. I mean, in some races, in certain times, I can ride days and not listen to any music, any mental stimulation. It just depends, really. I think it's fatigue and energy levels, and all of these things add up. But yeah, I listen to podcasts and music when the time is right. Sometimes I found that early in the morning, kind of maybe I'd try and get to breakfast time, and then after breakfast I'd really struggle, and that's when I found a distraction was really good. So I listened to some music or podcasts. I find podcasts really good just to make the time feel. So you can lose maybe 4 or 5 hours. I did this in Tour de Valle. I just listened to loads of podcasts I had saved. And you concentrate on that, and you think about you forget what you're doing. You forget that you're tired and you're hungry and your legs are really sore. So I find them really useful. And then other times I just put on some really loud music. Normally when it's getting dark and I'm a bit tired and a bit wavy, put on some DJ sets, and that's quite a good experience.
If I remember correctly, when we met after the Italy Divide, the big lunch, you remember, with Jay also and the other guys, you said that, for example, the stretch between Bologna, yes, and the Garda Lake, you listen to techno music.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I like getting that rhythm and just kind of putting my head down and being in my own little world. It depends. I quite like going fast on my bike, and I think that kind of fast beat, I like pedaling to it and having momentum.
Okay. So now comes the question. The next question is about the strategy. How do you prepare a race? You study. You really. You really study the track, the place where you're gonna ride. I would say it in Italian. Sorry, I always forget.
Okay.
Ora la domanda è su come prepari la gara. Studi attentamente la traccia e il posto dove vai o no? So, how do you prepare for a race? By studying, I mean, or not?
Well, I'm probably not as scientific as some people. For example, I guess James Hayden, he's really analytic in his performance, his training, and the way he breaks down the route. I'm a bit more kind of relaxed about it, I think. I do plan to a certain extent, but for example, if I was doing the Transcontinental or a race in a place that's quite well populated, like maybe Italy Divide, I wouldn't plan as much because there's so many places to stop and buy food. You don't really need to. And again, I kind of, instead of planning really small details, I plan larger sections of the race. So for me, it was kind of in Italy Divide, for example, there was the first of the night section out of Rome. That was one section. And then Tuscany, Florence, Siena. Was it Siena, then Florence? I can't remember which way. And then Bologna. So I just used bigger chunks. And in Italy that you can get food everywhere, so it's not a problem.
Yeah.
And the same as the transcontinental race. You have to plan your route in the transcontinental race, but because you're on the roads, you're always passing towns, you're always passing villages. So I don't really bother about it, to be honest. I just know that it's maybe 500 miles to CP1 and another 600 to CP2, and I just kind of use those sections. But in the Tour de Vide, you had to do a bit more preparation, because if you missed a food stop, then you could, be really hungry for a few days. But there's quite a lot of information about the Tour de Vide, so I didn't have to do too much of my own research. There's good resources on the internet which give kind of mileage charts and things like that. So I basically used them, and then I just did a lot of research beforehand and got the maps. There's official maps, have all the details, and I just try to learn a rough outline of the route. And I learned some things, and it turns out they're kind of irrelevant details, because once you're riding them, you don't notice. Other places were kind of more important. But now the route of the Tour de Vide in my mind now, I know it not off by heart, but I know the key sections. So I wouldn't have to prepare in the same way, and I think that just goes to show that experience is worth a lot.
Interesting. So it depends about the race, the place, yes, of course.
Exactly. Yeah. I didn't give it a very good answer. I guess I like the adventure too. So if it's too controlled and planned, it's not quite the same for me, really.
Well, I partially agree with that. I agree with that. I didn't study anything for French Divide, but fortunately there was Mauro that was one day ahead of me, and then I can text him.
Oh dear, that's supported, isn't it? That's deserve you.
Well, next question, Mauro.
Allora, qual è stato il momento in cui ti sei più spaventato o che è stato il peggior momento che hai attraversato durante una gara e come l'hai gestito? Allora, tell us about your scariest or worst moment you went through while racing and how you coped with it. Let's put beside when you were caught by the dog during the Tuscany Trail.
Yeah, well, that probably was, to be honest.
Yeah.
I mean,
it was very annoying because you had to leave the competition and you had to go back. Also on the wheelchair, I've read.
It was difficult. But yeah, the guys who organised it, they sorted me out and took me home, back to Pisa. But yeah, so that, I guess, I mean, I wasn't scared because Italy's not that far away from home, and there's always good people around. There's always people to help. I guess I'd be more scared in an isolated incident. Maybe if you're up in the high mountains and you're injured yourself in a big storm or something like that. But so far I've never had that. Touch wood, never had that problem. I don't think I've ever been scared. I think I've always been relatively in control, and I think I'm confident enough to get myself out of most situations. But I don't want to find out where the limits are, because I imagine they'd be pretty bad. If I was scared, I think it would be I'd be injured probably and unable to get help. I think that would probably be the worst moment. But so far, I've not experienced that. I mean, weather and bad weather is not really scary as such. If you prepare for it and if you've got the kit, it's not scary. You just have to deal with it. And if it means you have to stop and wait, then that's fine. Or if you have to put more layers on and get in your sleeping bag because it's cold. I mean, I think as long as you can recognize those signs, it's okay. But if you didn't recognize you were getting hypothermic, maybe that would be scary. I think I'm experienced enough in those kind of things to not be too scared and know how to deal with it before it gets to a scary situation.
What about people? Have you had any problem with people around the world? One of your bikepacking trips or your tour?
Yeah, in England. No, I think when I
We're too confident, probably.
yeah, I mean, there's always some people that just shout something at you, but when I did my tour, I mean, I was touring for 6 months. I got halfway around the world, and then you can see on my map, look, I went, you can see the colours, so I scratched off the colour, and then across, and then I got to Mexico, and then I realised 6 months was enough time away from home for me. But yeah, I did that whole journey, and I got shouted at and sworn at and abused from cars 5 times on the whole trip. And they were all in the first 2 days when I rode from my house to Southampton to catch the ferry in England. So I don't know.
Okay, no, my was only to shift from the dangers from the nature or from the animals to the dangers that can come from the civilization, which sometimes may be worse, being hit by a car or harmed by a robber in certain places. But it was only to show the several possibilities. Always be wise when traveling, not focus only.
I think that's the thing. I think the good thing about traveling is because you spend so much time in new places, you get a good instinct of when a bad situation is happening and a feel for a place. And I've certainly been to towns or villages where you think, oh, it's not so good here, I'm going to carry on. And I think that's one of the benefits of experience, really, and traveling lots of different places. I think you get the sense of what is could potentially be a bad situation. But having said that, I think a lot of people generally are very kind across the world. And I think as a solo traveler, you find the best of people. People always want to try and help, which is nice.
Yeah, well, I think we all agree on this point. It was also my question was also to show that people is generally kind, friendly, and I think all of us we received many help from people never met before. So it's the most important thing. Be kind, leave no trace. You can get out of any situation easily and happily.
Yeah, and equally, you have to be open-minded when you're in that situation. You have to accept help from people and talk to people. And some people kind of try and isolate themselves when they're alone, and that doesn't help. You need to be open, and if someone comes to talk to you, just start the conversation, and you never know where it will end up. And equally, if you are at home and someone's traveling or on a bike and they need help, then help them, because it will come back round sometime. Yeah. I've been helped enough times. I think I need to pay a few people back.
Yeah.
I try to anyway.
Okay.
Yeah, Mauro, I would like to ask you this question, because it's very personal. It also talks about the GB Duro that you did. So if you don't mind, you can ask the next question too.
Okay. Since I joined the GB Duro last year, I noticed that many riders had Mason cycles, bicycles. And you also ride a Mason, don't you? So, because I wanted to ask you if you support local sellers in your riding mood, if you think that it's important to support local bike sellers, shop, factories. So I just tell it in Italian. È importante per te come atleta, non soltanto nel Regno Unito, fornire supporto ai negozi di bici locali, ai rivenditori o alle fabbriche. Questo perché l'anno scorso ho pedalato nel GB2 e molti avevano le Mason Cycles che sono assemblate nel Regno Unito, anche se in realtà il telaio è d'acciaio. Questo detto così in italiano, non lo sapevo, l'ho scoperto dopo. So, Josh.
So I've been supported by Mason Cycles since 2015, since the very beginning. So they are a very small company, and they still are. They're getting bigger, but they started from nothing really. And I was very lucky to know Dom Mason, and he gave me a frame to use for the Transcontinental race, which I managed to win. So that was kind of a good start to the relationship, and it's grown from there. And the bike brand's grown. So yeah, they're proving quite popular, the Mason bikes, and it's, as far as supporting local, small businesses, I think it's very important to do so. I work for my family business. We're a small local business, and it's important, I think, to try and look. Don't necessarily just go to the internet and search something and buy it off Amazon or wherever, because quite often these places are on your doorstep. And I think, especially now, given the current situation with this lockdown, we've managed to stay open because of the type of business we are, and a lot of people have ended up coming to us, which has been good because we're there and we're able to help them. And I think it's the same for a lot of places. So whether it's in the bike industry or just generally, try and help your local places, because you can buy everything you need close to home. You don't have to buy it off the internet. And personally, I like being supported by small companies. I like the fact that I can speak to Dom at Mason Cycles. The reason the Mason Boca bike was invented or designed was because I could speak to Dom, and we realized there was a need for a bike that could go off road, and we kind of worked together on that. And then this was the Boca I used for Italy Divide, and then actually for Italy Divide it was a bit too the mountain bike sections were a bit too much for that bike, so we started thinking about other things, and then I went touring on the bike and realized that maybe there needed to be a bike that would fit, with 29-inch wheels for things like the Tour Divide. So again, you could just have a conversation with Dom and work closely together. And that's how the ISO, the In Search Of bike, was invented or designed, which I used in Tour Divide. So that's the good thing about small companies. You can work very closely. And all my sponsors, I say all of them, most of my sponsors are very small companies, like Hunt Bike Wheels. Well, they're getting bigger, but I was the first employee there, so I know them as a small company still. And Miss Great over in Italy. Kelly's supported me in 2015. And then I was sponsored by Apidura for a couple of years, but actually I like Michele as a person, and I like his company and like his ethos. So I asked him if he'd support me again, because I think I'd rather support a small local business like that. And Michele's got a real passion for bikepacking, and I think that's important. So as a rider, I have that passion, and I want to be able to work with people who have that passion. I don't really just want free stuff, which, it's nice, don't get me wrong. I like getting sponsored gear, but I'd rather be able to say, help design things and work together with a company and make it better. I've got a bit of a design background, so I did design at university. So I find this more interesting, and with small companies, it's easier. And even with DHD, my clothing company, the clothing sponsor, they're owned by Wiggle, which obviously is probably the biggest cycling company. But the actual brand is a very small department within there, so I can talk to everyone. I can ring up the guy who runs it and the marketing guys, and I speak to the designers. And I like the fact that the feedback goes directly to the product, and then you get the sample to try and use it, and then the consumer can buy the same thing in the next year. And that doesn't quite happen with big companies. I'm fortunate enough to be sponsored by Shimano this year for the first time, and they're a really good bunch of people and really nice, and the marketing department's really cool, and I get on really well with them, and that's important. But if I try to feedback to make a change to maybe a chain set, then that's not going to make the same impact. It's going to take a long time to get all the way through to the people at Japan who make the decisions, and then to the designers. So it's not the same, really. So that's kind of why I like smaller companies, and both personal and
I didn't think about on the athlete point of view. Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah. I mean, I think Mauro, you also know Michele, right, of Miss Grape?
Yeah.
I think everyone knows
in Garda Lake after the Italy divide. Yeah.
Right.
I met him personally in Garda Lake because there was the exhibition, bicycle exhibition. When I arrived 3 days later than you,
I missed him. I missed him by a day.
There I met Michele, and in the Italy divide I had a Miss Grape handlebar bag. So this can offer the opportunity for Daniele to make you the next question.
Yes, exactly. So your favorite bikepacking setup? I mean, you like to have the handlebar bag or saddle bag or both? And I will also ask if there is something, a tool, an object, something that you really think is essential for you in almost any condition. I will say it in Italian. La domanda è se qual è, diciamo, il setup preferito per le borse da bikepacking, se avere una borsa da manubrio oppure la borsa sottosella, e se c'è un oggetto, qualcosa che lui ritiene, che Josh ritiene essenziale per le gare o per gli eventi. So, bikepacking setup first, and then one essential object for you. 1, 2, 3, depends.
1 or 3. So I guess the best bikepacking setup, I mean, again, it's a very personal thing, and it depends on a lot of factors. It depends on your preference, depends on the bike type, and also I guess it depends on how tall you are as well, because if you're bigger, you have bigger frames, so you can use different bags, and it's more of a problem for smaller riders, I will admit. But my preference, because I'm tall and I always use a large frame, if I can, I try and get the biggest frame bag possible, because I think it keeps the weight central on the bike. So I try and keep heavier items within the frame to try and keep the handling balanced. I try and avoid handlebar bags if I can, but sometimes there's no option. Not because it has its benefits and it has its downsides. The downside is that sometimes if you've got a handlebar bag and like feed bags, it can make the steering a little bit, you can't go quite so tight, and it can make it a bit slower. I mean, you soon get used to it, but I prefer not to have that if possible. For the benefit, I mean, I've been touring on a mountain bike with a bar bag on there. You just get so much grip on the front wheel. It's really good. So, it depends what you want. I mean, on the road, I'd try and avoid it at all costs because it's a bigger frontal area. And, if there's more drag, you'll go slower. So it's not so relevant off-road. But generally, I try and get as much stuff in the frame as I can. I normally use a saddle pack, but I try and make it not too heavy. Because obviously if it's up high and it swings, it can affect the balance of the bike. And that's why it's important to have a really good saddle bag, one that doesn't swing around and that can compact really well. Which is why I like using the Miss Grape stuff, because it just works well, which is important. You can really pull hard on the straps and it's not going to break. For me, that's the key points of something like that. So yeah, it depends on how long I'm going. So when I cycled for 6 months, I had a frame bag, and then because I have a big frame bag, I could put my tent in there. I had a small tent, a big frame bag. That's a good combination. And then in my roll bag or the bar bag, I had my sleeping stuff and some shoes. And then in my saddle pack, I put clothes because they're lighter and you can push them in. Yeah. So that's my general kind of rules if I'm racing. For example, the TCR I won in 2015, I took some risks with my stuff. I didn't have hardly anything with me, and I just had a frame bag and nothing else. Which was, I got away with it. Let's put it that way. I think I'm not so stupid nowadays, but but generally, I think, for example, Italy Divide, I had a frame bag again because it was only 2 or 3 days risk. I think now I'd probably run a frame bag and then like a very small race saddle pack, just for kind of stuffing like a rain jacket in, or just to make a bit more room. I think it's important to have extra space if you can. I learned that especially on Tour Divide. Sometimes I was at my limit, and if I'd have just taken like a larger frame bag, a larger saddle pack rather than a smaller saddle pack, I could still roll it up if I didn't have it full. But then if I needed space for extra food, or I was just tired and just wanted to shove some clothing in, having the extra space and the extra volume is always a benefit. So I'd always say go for the bigger bag if you can, because you can always make them smaller. But that's my kind of preference, really.
I think I agree with this choice. I mean, I remember, well, sometimes I bring with me a very small packable backpack.
Yeah,
I have one that in case I need extra food for some sections that I know there's no food, or I can wrap it and open it and put on, and I have extra space. But I mean, having a big saddle bag and then you roll, I think is the best.
Yeah, I mean, it's all good, you know, if you can get a really light setup and not need to carry all the extra weight and can get away with it, it's fine. But the problem is, if you don't get away with it, if you need to buy extra food or you have a problem and need to carry something, then that's when you regret it, you know. And I got away with it on, like I said, on Italy Divide and TCR. I knew I was taking a risk. I knew I was, you know, the lightest person in the field, and I did that for a reason. But I think on the more remote races, I don't think it's a risk you need to take, really, because if it goes wrong, you know, we said about being scared in things earlier. If you say you're doing maybe the Silk Road race or even the Atlas race or even Tour Divide, and, you know, imagine if I'd have got stuck in a storm like Sofiane did and I didn't have enough clothing, then that is a dangerous situation. So you just have to be aware of where you're going and what the conditions are and plan accordingly. And I'd always, now with experience and hindsight, take a little bit more than I need.
You pay a sort of insurance with added weight, in a sort of sense. It can be an insurance.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you can save weight and climb faster, but then if you get hypothermia on the way down the hill the other side because you didn't carry a rain jacket, you can lose all the time you've gained. So you just have to balance these things, and it's personal choice too, and it's decisions that can be made with experience. My kit list changes all the time. I think the basis is about the same, but the details change depending on the race and different ideas. And now I'm more experienced and probably less inclined to take big risks. I think my pack list, shows that. And I've also been cold a few times too, so you learn the hard way, don't you?
Yeah.
I remember Italy Divide. Do you remember the first night on Italy Divide?
Yes. Quite cold.
Very -3 or something.
Yeah, it was pretty cold. Yes, I remember. I was with a friend. He didn't have his gloves. Fortunately, I had an extra pair, so we managed to.
Yeah, I was so close to being cold. I think that's why we went so fast. We had to just keep riding to keep warm. And I remember the sun came out, and the relief was so good. But I mean, I could have just. I didn't have a saddle pack, but if I had taken a small saddle pack, I could have taken a warmer jacket, and that one warm jacket would have made a massive difference. But, I learned my lessons, and, it's always changing, always evolving, and that's the thing about it. It's not the same, is it? It's not like, every race is going to be exactly the same. Even on the same course in a different year, it's going to be a whole different race. So you just have to be adaptable, really.
Yeah. And so what's essential? What do you think is essential to have as a tool?
A good toolkit, I think, and spares. I mean, I know this is where I'm going to sound like an idiot. Always take the spares. And then what didn't I take when I went to Rwanda in February for the race around Rwanda? I didn't take any spare brake pads. And I had to pull out the race because I wore through my brakes and then I wore through my rotors. So everyone makes mistakes. But that's my fault. I should have packed spare brake pads. And I know I should have packed spare brake pads. And I just didn't do it. I don't even know why. I had a spare rear mech hanger and I had to use that. I crashed and I bent it for the first time in a race and I had to repair it. But I didn't take brake pads. It's just foolish. So that cost me a race. So yeah, always take spares, always take good tools, not crappy lot multi-tools. Try and take a decent tool. So I've got this, it's by Fabric. It's kind of an Allen key kit, but it's got a ratchet system on it. Mm-hmm. So that's really good. So you can actually hold the tool properly and mend things, and you don't have to fiddle around with a crappy, multi-tool that's folding and twists. So I take that. Yeah, take everything you need to repair your bike, and then take good layers, good clothing layers. Mm-hmm. Obviously, it depends on the race and where you are. Yes. But for example, Tour Divide, I was worried about weather up high, so I made sure I took a really good. I actually modified some rainproof bib tights. And I cut the chamois out so I could pull them on over my shorts, and that worked really well because it's better than waterproof trousers because they crinkle and they tear and they just rustle. So I took proper tights and a proper rain jacket with a hood and proper rain gloves, and that made all the difference. So I'd say good warm weather kit and wet weather kit if you're going to need it. Good toolkit, and just make sure you wear some shorts that you're comfortable with and you've tried, because if you've not tried them before or you've not tried them over long distance, it can be bad if you find out they're not the right ones for you. Yeah. Actually, I'd probably say I'd take 2 pairs of shorts as well, depending on the ride and the distance.
Yeah, I usually have 2.
Yeah, I only had 1 when I did the TCR in 2015, and it wasn't great. I think that's why I tried to ride so fast, just to take the bloody things off. But I'll spare you the details on that.
Yeah, something seems essential. Something seems luxury equipment.
Yeah. So Mauro, would you like to ask next 2 questions or next question? And
we were asking you about the movie Ryan Legarrec made of your Tour Divide.
Sorry, Ryan, for the pronunciation of your surname. We don't know how to pronounce it.
He's English. He's English pretending to be French. They have to say it in an English accent.
So, Legarrec.
It's not ours, but it's the same. Okay. Oh, because we watched the movie on YouTube, but it was interesting because it was a sort of psychedelic way of showing how you rode the whole tour, shifting from the morning, the evenings, those beautiful landscapes, this music which was giving a sort of anxiety of getting to the goal, to the finish line. So we wanted to know if it was something that it was in your head, or the Ryan Legarrec, the director, made a personal interpretation of it. Just a second, I try to explain it in Italian. Allora, abbiamo visto il film The Length of Time, che ricostruisce il Tour Divide che ha percorso Josh. È un film abbastanza psichedelico, guardatelo, perché dura abbastanza, ma potete, insomma...
Un'ora e qualcosa.
Sì, un'ora e qualcosa, insomma, però è interessante perché comunque mostra bellissimi panorami fatti in maniera professionale, con questa, diciamo, resa psicologica del ciclista. Noi gli abbiamo chiesto appunto se è riuscito a rispecchiare un po' il suo stato d'animo o se è stata un'interpretazione del regista. So Josh, tell us about your experience. What did you feel during the Tour Divide, and if the director was able to show it as you expected?
Well, the length of time film is very much Ryan's kind of making. I was just in it, but but the interesting thing about Ryan is he's obviously passionate about long distance cycling. He's actually raced the TCR. However, he didn't finish. I think he found it very tough. But that's very good because he understands it. He knows the suffering. He's been there. He knows the suffering, and I think because of that, he was able to really portray the Tour Divide very well in the film. From a rider's perspective, I mean, it's not a polished Hollywood spectacular. I mean, it probably doesn't encourage you to want to do the Tour Divide, but then it's not meant to do that. It's more like of an artist kind of interpretation.
Sorry.
And Ryan,
I really like it because the approach is completely different. I mean, it's from the perspective, as you said, of the rider, but it's not like to say, I'm the best, I won it, I made it, or this is the greatest event, the greatest adventure. It's more about, it's very personal from really the rider's point of view. That's what I get from it.
Yeah, I think that's what we wanted to achieve. I mean, obviously, I wasn't involved during the race because I was racing, and
yes,
you know, there's a whole nother storm around that, but I won't go into that now. But I was doing the GoPro. I was going to do GoPro anyway, to be honest. That's how the whole thing started. I met Ryan in Oman, and Ryan and his friend Lander, who does all the amazing drone footage. I met them at the Biking Man event in Oman. We just got on really well, and I love the style of things they did. So I asked Ryan if he'd edit my crappy GoPro footage from Tour Divide, and one thing led to another, and then him and Lander were following the Tour Divide, or the second half anyway. But yeah, we get on really well, and I think we work well together, and he understands cycling. But he's also got a very different view about it because his history is music videos. He's been on like music tours with Damien Rice. I think he was on tour with for a long time. So he's got a different kind of perspective on things, and he's not trying to be cool. He's not trying to make the next, Rafa film or the next whatever film. It's his view and his vision of it. But from my point of view, he understands it. He totally gets it. And I think that's important because maybe if you stumbled across, if you weren't into bikepacking, if you didn't understand the Tour Divide and racing, you might watch it on YouTube and maybe not understand it or like it. But I think he's, from a personal perspective, he's got it right. That's what happened. That's how it was. And I think he followed the emotions well with the music and the moody kind of shots.
Yeah.
I think it's. I think anyone who's done a bikepacking race can relate to it better. But if you've not done a race, then you might struggle with it. But that's the kind of the point of it, really. But yeah, but we've got some other stuff coming too. We've been busy since then. It was a busy year last year, so keep watching for some more films.
Most of us usually take short videos and try to realize something that can be shown to other people. But everybody dreams about having a director to realize something like that with our shaking videos or shaking pictures. So it's
Well, I do the same with you, to be honest. I mean, I just take shaky pictures. I just make some good friends. It's, but yeah. But I like personally, I like making the videos because not necessarily because I can show off to everyone and they can watch it. It's probably more selfish than that. For me, I like to. It's like kind of revisiting the trip, and sometimes I just kind of watch back some things I've done for my own memories, really, to remember what it was like. And also, I think it's part of processing the trip. I mean, I couldn't tell you what happened on Tour Divide until I'd sat down a few weeks later, thought about it, and then going through the footage I'd taken before I'd seen anything Ryan done, and editing it. And that's an important part of the process, I think.
Cool.
And if other people enjoy it, then that's a bonus, really.
Yeah. Well, again, I found it very peculiar, the perspective, and also really you can really feel the heaviness, the fatigue, the time. It seems like that sometimes you are stuck somewhere. You can't go any farther, but then you fight against yourself. You say, "Yeah, I can do that." It's very interesting. I mean,
I think it's very real. You know, I don't want to make anything that's not real.
Yeah.
Because, you know, I'm not really into films about, you know, these Hollywood blockbusters you see. I don't like that kind of film. I like factual. I like real things. So I'm not going to try and make something that isn't real. I'd rather kind of be show the good parts and the bad parts. And there's quite a lot of bikepacking films which are just really good. They're just like, oh, this is amazing. Oh, it's such a good view. Oh, wow, it's good all the time. But the truth is, it's not. There are really good moments, but quite a lot of the time, it's just shit.
Yeah, exactly. So, last question. What about the future? I mean, I know that we are all now kind of stuck, but if you have to think about some next race or thing you would like to do, even touring. So sorry,
Yeah,
I say in Italian. Sorry,
yeah, carry on.
Quindi, ultima domanda, quali sono i tuoi piani per il futuro? Okay, go on. It's very short Italian.
Okay. Well, my plans for this year are, for obvious reasons, have changed massively. And to be honest, I don't really know what my plans are now. The idea was to go back to Tour Divide and Dirty Kanza because the two were quite close. I learned a lot last year in Tour Divide, and I really wanted to go and do the time I think I can do. You know, I wasn't necessarily looking to try and win it, because actually I realised that winning things isn't the most important thing about it to me. But I know I made lots of mistakes last year, and I think I could do a 15-day time, and I was going to go and try and do that. You know, if you do that kind of time in the right year, you might win it, but it's secondary, really. But obviously, the coronavirus crisis pandemic has happened, so international travel is not really going to be possible for the next few months, or the rest of the year, possibly. Even within the UK, I'm not entirely sure if there's going to be any events on yet. However, having said that, the most likely one at the moment is GB Duro. So, Maro, I need to ask you advice.
Consider that I bet my Dero Hunger in the first hour of the first day of the tour. So get them too.
Yeah. So I mean, there might be a chance to do that this year. I doubt it'll be to the original kind of plans. But if we can travel within the UK and use public transport and do non-essential travels, there is a chance. So I know the guys who organise it, so they've said I can have a place. So I'm kind of aiming for that. I'm kind of training, but not properly, because I don't want to train too much, because it's not really right to be going and doing 6-7 hour rides all the time in the current situation. I'm not really training more than 3 hours a day. Well, my longest rides are 3 hours, so maybe about 12 hours a week I think I'm doing. So I'm just keeping fit. If GB Joe happens, then for me, it'll be just great to get out and ride, and it's a good route. I want to ride from Land's End to John O'Groats. It's one of the things I want to do anyway. You know, and I might be fit, and if I ended up, you know, able to race well, then that's a bonus. But you just can't tell at the moment. I have to take it week by week. So I'm just using that as a goal because I need something to look for. Otherwise, I'd lose motivation. So I think I'm going to use that as a goal. And if it doesn't happen, then at least I'm 2 months further down and 2 months closer to normality. And then after that, I mean, there's lots of races that might be on in the UK, gravel races, like the Dirty Reaver is rearranged for September. But again, I don't know if events will be able to happen. You know as much as I do. So, but I've set some longer goals just in case. You know, if these things happen, then I want to be kind of ready for them, and it'd be great. But if they don't, and then it's just a sacrifice that everyone's got to make for now. So I can't complain about it. And then longer term, I mean, hopefully next year things will be back to normal. I'd like to go back to Tour Ride at some point, whether that's next year or the year after, I don't know. I'd like to do the Atlas Mountain race. This one really appeals to me. And I like to just do some more touring because I like touring.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll have to see what happens. Who knows? And if there's some opportunities that crop up at the moment, I did the race around Rwanda. Well, I didn't finish. I started the race around Rwanda in February, but that opportunity came up at maybe 2 months' notice. So if a chance comes up like that in a new country or an interesting place, then I'm quite open to try these new adventures, really. And I think I have to come back to Italy too.
Good suggestions. And let's start from discovering our backyard.
Yeah.
Go abroad again.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah. I mean, the first thing you need to do is be able to have an adventure from home. So, I mean, I know my local area better than I've ever known now. So I've had lots of local adventures. So I think my circle is going to get slightly bigger each week the more restrictions are taken away. And then maybe I can go to Europe before the end of the year. Who knows?
So, well, I think that now is almost an hour and 30 minutes that we've been
sorry.
So, no, it's okay.
You have to listen to me. If you
I can continue. I mean, can go on for another half hour. It's always interesting to share and talk to people, and I mean, people that have such an experience racing as you have. And well, it was also nice to see you again. I mean, it's been a long time. Well,
we still remember Josh sitting on the
throne
sofa in Torbole.
Yeah,
in the purple sofa.
Yeah, and we were still struggling on the Via degli Dei, I think.
Yeah.
Under the snow or the rain. You were
Yeah.
That's what it went quick.
Yeah, I mean, you seem so fresh, eh? After almost 3 days riding.
I wasn't.
I
broke myself on that ride. That was just after Mike died in his funeral. The last conversation I had with Mike before he died was at the cycle show in I think it was in Birmingham in the UK. And we were talking about Italy Divide, and he said, "Oh yeah, I invited to Italy Divide. I'm not going to go, so you've got to make sure you beat Jay for me." So I had to. So I was very motivated.
This last, I didn't hear what you said. Sorry, I didn't hear the last sentence.
So I was very motivated to beat JP Tavari because that was what Mike asked me to do.
Okay. Yeah.
So that's why I pushed very hard.
Okay. that's the reason, right? Also me and Mauro, sometimes we are motivated to beat other people, but we never succeed. But
we have fun anyway.
Yes. Okay, so thank you very much. It was nice. I hope you had a great time with us, talking about bikepacking, about your career, your touring, your life, and thank you very much. Mauro, you would like to say something?
No, only thanks again for you for being here. Let's catch up on the trail soon.
Hopefully. Yeah, thanks for having me on. And yeah, like I said, see you soon, hopefully.
Yeah.
You are always very welcome. Whenever you want.
I'll be back in Italy, don't worry.
Okay. Maybe for Italy Divide. Now it's longer. So.
Yeah, I'm interested because it starts in Naples, in Napoli.
Yeah, well, so actually, it's from Pompeii, next to Naples.
Yeah, wow. Yeah. So maybe I mean, at the moment, there's no plans for the rest of the year. Yeah. I guess that maybe some travel in Europe might be possible. Who knows? I can't say right now, can you?
Ok,
so
allora possiamo chiudere il collegamento, salutiamo finalmente in italiano, speriamo anche noi di capire dai sottotitoli quello che ci ha detto Josh fino adesso. Così. Okay. Allora dai, possiamo chiudere. Ciao.
Yeah,
ciao. Grazie mille.
You can go to sleep. Ciao. Buonanotte.
Bye.
Bye, ciao.
Abbiamo fatto un colossal praticamente, 1 ora e mezza.
Ok.
Ok, tanto ok. I think they will